And there goes the Zoom lady. Love it. I think it's a good evening for most folks on this. I don't know if we've got some folks from across the way, but if so, good late night to you. My name is Rodney. I'm a grateful arrested alcoholic, and I do know that it's only by God's grace and mercy that I'm here, and that I'm sober. Really, that I'm sober, and I'm a part of this sacred fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I do look at Alcoholics Anonymous as being sacred. I've seen too many things happen. I've heard of too many things that have happened in what we do here, and in my experience, that is sometimes unexplainable. And to me, it is sacred, and it gets protected by those traditions that we have, and those concepts. To see that what we've got in place, and what kept us here, not what brought us here, but what kept us here continues to keep us here, and we pass it along and we protect it, right? So when something's sacred, we got to protect it. Doesn't matter what we deem being sacred, whatever that is, we protect it, and we've got some protections, we've got some bumper guards in this thing, and that's why we're here. David, you did not tell me we'd have so many people here, man. I thought we'd have a nice little intimate fireside chat, um, but it is what it is. Thank you, David, again for the friendship that we have developed virtually, and through the phone, and attending meetings together. Karen, who's driving the Starship Enterprise this evening, and the number of folks that are backstage pulling the chains and the curtains, and making sure that we're safe and that we're able to do what we got to do. If anybody here is new, anybody here that's coming back, especially if you're coming back, you're my hero. I want to welcome you to Alcoholics Anonymous and what we do. And for those of you that got here before this knucklehead came through the door, didn't know what he was walking into, didn't know he needed you all, I want to thank you for keeping the light on. And when I say I didn't know, I truly, truly, truly did not know I needed you guys. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know I was alcoholic. I didn't know anything else. But I was a know-it-all. So picture that. Picture that. To give you some statistics, my sobriety date is June 28th, 2014. And on the night of June 27th, you couldn't have paid me $1 million to get me to say that I was alcoholic, that I had a problem with alcohol, that I was going to stop drinking, that I needed to stop drinking, because none of those things were true for me. So I thought. And I had to come to you guys and have you guys tell me who I was.
Rodney, you're muted.
And now I'm unmuted. You can hear me, right? Okay, got it. So again, I came to you all and found out that I was alcoholic. Me titling myself as an alcoholic was not something I did before I came here. I had to get out of jail free card that said, listen, you didn't drink every day, so you're not alcoholic. You don't go into your wife's purse and steal, you're not alcoholic. All right. You take a shower every day or most days, and you change your clothes, you're not alcoholic. You don't own a trench coat, your shoes match, yada, 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 yada. I had a bunch of things that told me I was not alcoholic. And most of all, and some folks on this meeting tonight have heard me talk about my dad. I was not my dad. I lived in a house with a stone cold alcoholic. Back then, they were called drunks. They didn't get sophisticated and called them alcoholics. They were drunks. And that alcoholic, he drank directly from a half pint or a pint of vodka. Never saw that man drink from a cup. And he carried his pint of vodka or half a pint of vodka in his back pocket wherever he went. My dad was the kind of guy who walked around with his alcohol, and he wasn't ashamed of it. Wasn't ashamed of it. Um, Thankfully, he did stop drinking. He didn't get this program, but he stopped drinking. But he didn't get this program. And what I mean by that is that he didn't work the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, didn't have a spiritual experience, and didn't get a chance to experience what we get to experience in this program. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, hopefully by the time my lips stop flapping, you'll have some idea about it, or maybe I will spark an interest in it. And if you've been sitting here comfortable in Alcohol Anonymous, maybe I'll disturb you and move you a bit and do some change in it and do something different to get some different results. In that house with that alcoholic, along with myself, was a hellfire brimstone Pentecostal going to church mom that made sure me and my younger brother were up in church, under the church, anytime the church doors open, even when she didn't go. Y'all ever had a mom like that? They're going to make sure you go to church, but they don't go. They're sitting home while you're getting up early. I mean, come on, man, give me a break. So by the time I got here, I came here with an understanding of a God, of religion, with spirituality, whatever you want to call it. I came here with some morals. I knew right from wrong. I knew how to get right up close to that line and never cross that line. That's how I rolled, right? That's how I rolled. I never wanted to disappoint my mom. Um, but I did a lot of things that if I got caught, guess what I would have done? I would have disappointed her. So Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? Living two lives. That's how I lived, not only as a kid, but as an adult until I came to you guys, right? Came to you guys. So I lived in that household, and because of what I saw with my dad, I was not dissuaded by alcohol, right? I could not wait because see, my mom came from a family of she was one of 14. She was one of 14. And in her on her dad's side, he had 9 or 10 siblings, and they all had at least 7, 8, 9 kids. So, huge family on that side. And when we would go down south, down in North Carolina, in the sticks, they were sharecroppers. We'd be on the farm and we'd get together, and there was a lot of drinking, a lot of shenanigans going on, and this boy was attracted to it. And I knew when I became of age, I was going to do the same thing. Because, see, before they went out, they would be excited, they would be happy, they would be getting dressed, and they would be laughing and all that stuff. And then they would go out and they would come back and tell all these stories. And I wanted that, right? We talk about if we have what you want and you're willing to go to any length. Well, guess what? I wanted what they had, and I wanted to go to any length to find out what it was that they had. And when I became of age, and for me, it was 14, growing up in the inner city of Baltimore, me and some boys get together and we get somebody to cop for us, and they come out with a couple of bags, brown bags with some bottles in it. We roll that bag down around the neck of the bottles, and we pop the top and we start passing that drink. Now, I don't know about y'all, where y'all came from and so on and so forth, but see, we stood in the corners and we did what we had to do. And as those bottles were being passed, my alcoholism rose its head very early on because what I was doing is that as those bottles left my hand and was being passed around the circle, I was watching to make sure that bottle was coming back. It had to get back to me because I had to get more, even at those ages, right? And I continued to drink as I got older, and I continued to play sports, in school and in the neighborhood. And I continued to drink as I was learning how to drive. And I drank and I drove from a very early age, and I drank and I drove until the time I came to the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous. Um, and did a bunch of other things. Did a bunch of other things. Um, again, I talked about my get out of jail card with this alcoholism thing is that I didn't drink every day. I didn't look like my dad. I hadn't had any consequences. And up to the time I came here, I was not asking God to take this alcohol away from me. I was not sick and tired of being sick and tired. I hadn't burnt my life down to the ground. And Alcoholics Anonymous was not the last house on the block for this guy. That's just been my experience, right? I had a bad night, and I don't know if any of y'all ever had a bad night. This boy had a bad night, and I'll get to that as I go through my story and talk about some of those things about what it was like. And yes, I'm giving you a drunk along because number one, I got some time. And we're storytellers up in this piece. And because of your stories, I'm still here 11 and a half years later, right? I got some time so I can talk about this drunk along because there may be somebody listening tonight who may feel as though that they're not alcoholic because they don't have all the consequences, right? And if we've been here for a minute and we've heard some things and we've opened a couple of these books, we know that what I drink, how much I drink, where I drink, what color the drink was, how much the drink cost, none of that stuff matters, right? And most of it has nothing to do with alcohol in itself. It has to do with this internal malady that I have inside of myself. Even as a Pentecostal, yes, Pentecostals can have a spiritual malady, regardless of what we think. And I'm one of those, right? And I'm one of those, right? So I'm getting older and I'm playing sports and I go to college and I'm playing sports and I'm, having these drink episodes here and there. They're not every day, and I didn't drink every day. Sometimes didn't drink every week and a bunch of other things. So I'm not having these consequences. So I'm not alcoholic. Didn't know what it was. Didn't know what it was. Um, I, I I go to college and find out I'm not going to play football right away. I get a thing called redshirted where they let you sit and mature a little bit, give you some time to catch up with the older young men. So I'm not going to play. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to drink. So the games are on Saturday. So Friday night, I'm ripping it up. I'm walking through the campus and walking through the dorms, and a song is a rap song. He used to say, the freaks come out at night. That was your boy, right? That was your boy, right? And thank God I never had to play on a Saturday because I would have too much alcohol in me to really be able to perform. And that's just a microcosm of how I was, right? So I did on Friday. I would stay hung over Saturday and Sunday, and come Monday, I'm ready to go. Because see, when I drank, I got the allergy. So I came here and y'all started talking this three-legged stool of an allergy, an obsession, compulsion, and spiritual malady. And you started talking some stuff that we didn't talk about on the corners of Baltimore. You started talking about an allergy. You said, when I get it in my body, I get thirsty. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? You drink a beverage and it's going to quench your thirst. I got something that can't be quenched. And the more I get, the more I want. And see, I don't know about you. When I drank, I didn't drink because I was fat. I didn't drink because I was black. I didn't drink because we were poor. I didn't drink because my parents didn't tell me those bedtime stories and rub my belly and give me a warm glass of milk and tell me everything was going to be okay. I drank for one reason. The doctor's opinion said I drank for the effect. I drank to get nice, right? That's what me and my boys would say on the corner. We would say, are we getting nice tonight? Absolutely. We put them coins together and we get that alcohol and we start getting nice. That's why I drank. It wasn't, because somebody pissed me off or I was mad or was a happy. It did not matter. And when I drank for one reason, one solitary reason, to have me change. I drank for the effect. And that was it. And then everything else went along with it. And I had to drink everything in sight because I had the allergy. I didn't understand that until I came to you guys. Did not understand it until I came to you, right? And my mom would say to my dad, why does he have to get to the bottom of every bottle he sees? Once I came to y'all, I could answer that question for her. Because I did the same exact thing. If you left your cup, you wasn't coming back. I was going to jump inside your cup. I tried to drink everything in sight when I drank when I was drinking. And the big book says, if in one of the stories, and I think it was Jim, if he didn't have any alcohol, he was a pretty decent man, right? He was a pretty decent man. Now I did a lot of nonsense and I didn't have any alcohol in my body, right? And most of y'all that have been around me and you heard me speak, I talk about the first paragraph of page 18, where it talks about, comparing our disease to cancer and how we're treated. But because when I have cancer, guess what? I don't turn into a madman, right? It says if you're connected with me, the alcoholic illness, there goes with it the annihilation of everything worthwhile in life. When I have cancer, I'm not annihilating anything. But when I got this disease and I trigger that disease, guess what? I'm going to annihilate everything worthwhile in life. Gorilla glue cannot fix it. Cancel Christmas, Jack. Done, right? Misunderstandings, fierce resentments, financial insecurities, blameless children, and sad wives. Bingo. None of that has anything to do with alcohol. It does not mention alcohol. It talks about how this knucklehead shows up in life. And that's exactly how we're showing up in life. Most of my damage happened without having a single drop of alcohol in my body. When I walk in the house and I tell my wife, I'm going here, I'm going to be here with this person, I'm going to stay this long, and this is the time I'm coming back home. I didn't have any alcohol in my body when I looked her eyeball to eyeball and was lying to her down her throat. And then when she would call on the phone and where am I? What's going on? And I wouldn't answer that phone. No alcohol in my body. So this program arrested me with the doctor's opinion and that first paragraph on top of page 18. I was able to see myself. I was able to see myself. So I'm jumping around a bit here, but let me quickly tell you how I got here. And this is usually an interesting story, and I got some time, so I'm gonna lay it out for y'all. I'm keeping an eye on the clock. Um, I was an administrator with a high school, a local high school here in Albany. There's an all boys high school, and it's graduation night, and most of you know if there's graduation, it's a big time, big. Families been waiting for a long time, and they want to be happy, they want to celebrate their kids, and so on and so forth. And that's no different than our school that I worked for here. So it's graduation night, and the principal gives us the afternoon off so we can go get ourselves ready and do what we need to do to get fixed up and be prepared to put on a great show for these kids and their families. Me being the alcoholic, and this will give you a real good insight to this guy that you're listening to, right? I call a young lady that I'm not living with, read between the lines, and you'll hear a little bit about the lady that I was living with. And we go out and we have some fun, we have some drinks, and I'm able to go to the graduation, get backstage, put a cap and gown on, and sit on the stage and do what I got to do for the graduation, right? That night. And my role is to call the name of the students to get their high school diplomas. Big time, big deal, right? The graduation goes off without a hitch. There's no problems. I'm high-fiving guys. I'm giving some hugs. A couple tears are shed. There's some I'm kicking them in the butt and tell them to leave and don't ever come back. But doing what we do. So there's a celebration after that. Now there's a graduation the following year. And if you've read the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and you've read Bill's story, which is now the first chapter of the Big Book, to me it gives an ideal description of the progressive nature of the illness of alcoholism, excuse me, right? Bill comes back from war and he's going to conquer the world. He's going to be a master of industry. He's going to be an attorney. He's going to be a golfer. He's going to be a finance. He's going to do all these things, right? And he chronicles that path and little by slow how it is chipped away by his alcoholism. And at the end, he's wondering if he needs to put his mattress outside of his window because he might jump, right? So there's a lot in between coming back a hero, looking to conquer the world, to putting his life in his own hands and then taking it. My progressive nature ended me with graduation night that following year. Same deal. We get some time off. I call the same young lady, still not living with her, and we go have some fun and we start doing some drinking and I start doing some drinking and all of a sudden something different happened. right? And Uncle Ralph likes to call it the vampire showed up. And what the vampire did, the vampire said, hey, listen, take this first one and you can ask for the second one. And see what happened once I took that second one, the second one, kind of begged for that third one. And the third one, demanded the fourth one. And I don't know how many I had, y'all. When the scoreboard read zero, I was blacked out and I was done. The big book talks about us being selfish and self-centered by nature. And if you're like me, the show can't go on without me, right? The show can't go on without me. I'm totally blacked out. And this young lady that I'm with, I'm telling her I'm going to this graduation and I'm going to drive. I told you I like to drink and drive. Not proud of it, but that's my story. That's what I did. So I put this young lady in a situation that was very uncomfortable. And I talked about what I've gathered from my fourth step work is how I was showing up in life, right? How I was showing up in life, right? Um, I can't fix a problem if I don't identify the problem. My fourth step identified the problem, and that problem was public enemy number one. That was me. So I put this young lady in a situation. Do I let this knucklehead drive? Do I let him get behind the wheel, hurt himself, injure somebody else, or cause a death, if not his own? Or do I take him to this graduation and then he does whatever and ruins a graduation for everybody else because he's selfish by nature? Now, remember, I told you this young lady that I'm not living with, guess who's in the audience waiting for me to show up? The young lady I'm living with. Wow. Yeah. So she's in the audience, and guess what I'm doing to her? Everybody's going to her, asking her, where is he? Is he showing up? Is he okay? What time will he be here? Is he what we do to other people, right? How we show up in life. If we started this thing drinking and using at a young age, what we did to our parents. If we have family members, what we're doing to them when we're living our alcoholic lives, right? I get to see that by hearing your stories, but also doing my individual work with a sponsor or someone that's done the work. Very, very, very important. And that work was life-changing for me. So guess what, y'all? This young lady takes me to the graduation, and guess what happens? I get to the graduation, I get backstage, I put a cap and gown on, and I get on stage. Totally blacked out. I'm not talking about buzzing. I'm talking about totally blacked out. I still don't remember anything that happened that night. Evidently, I get on stage and I sit in my seat, and the grace of God begins to work and make sure I don't go anywhere near the microphone. Didn't do anything that night. I can't tell you what happened. The young lady that I was living with, my girlfriend at the time, she knew what was going on. She got up out of her seat and she was going to leave. And someone grabbed her and said, don't you go anywhere. It's not about you, it's about him. Not about you, not about him. It's about him. And she sat and she stayed through the graduation. The graduation did go off without a hitch, y'all. Let me move this along. The principal walked me off, poured me into that girl's car, that my girlfriend that I was living with, took me home. I came to realize some things that had happened, wasn't fully aware. And from what she told me, I ran out of the house and screaming and yelling, my life is over. What have I done? And so on and so forth. And because of that Emmy, that Oscar-winning performance, I was given two options, two rewards for my performance that night by the board chair. And take a guess what those options were: resign or be fired. Right? Still was not convinced that I had a problem. Didn't identify I had a problem. I had a bad night. I didn't eat enough before I was drinking. I started too early. Didn't know what I didn't know. Did not know what I didn't know. And that really started the process for me. Because see, one of my character defects is that I'm a know-it-all, right? And I'll give away my age here. Back in the 70s and early 80s, there was a commercial called the Shell Answer Man for Shell gas station. right? That's me. I'm the shell answer man. Before it comes out your mouth, I already know what it is. But see, I didn't know this thing that I had called alcoholism. Had absolutely no clue. So after that happens, and before the board chair gets off the phone, he did this on the phone, by the way. He said, listen, what you're about to go through will help you just give into it. Your life will get better. I'm like, dude, you just kicked me to the curb. You took away my livelihood. And now you're going to give me some father knows best advice, really? But see, he had some experience and he knew something about what happens in these rooms. I go to an outpatient program because I knew a friend there and I heard people talk about these recovery places and going away for treatment. And I knew people did those type of things. And I called a local place and they took me in and they gave me an assessment. They said, you're chemically dependent. I was like, oh, okay, I'm good. I said, I don't use drugs. Didn't know what I didn't know. Did not know what I didn't know. And through the grace of God, I went to that program, and for the very, very first time in my life, I actually listened. For the first time in my life, I listened. And I didn't listen so that I could wax eloquently about what they were saying in this program. Something began to penetrate, right? I began to crack open. And I began to say, there's something going on. I hadn't figured it out yet. And then they hit me with something else. They said, hey, listen, you need to go to the rooms. I'm like, rooms? I have a house. And by the way, I've got keys to a number of other houses. And they were all keys I shouldn't have had, I shouldn't have had houses I shouldn't have keys to. So again, read between the lines. I didn't know the rooms that they were talking about were the healing rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous because I did not know what I didn't know. Did not know what I didn't know. I did take their advice. I went to my first meeting with some guys that was in that meeting. It was a men's meeting. I went there and I heard some laughter. I heard some sarcasm. I heard some jokes. I saw some hugs. I saw some slaps on the back. I saw some high fives. I saw some tears. I heard some honesty. I also heard some cursing, and it was in a church. And I couldn't figure that out because, see, again, I'm Pentecostal, and there's not much you can do when you're Pentecostal other than breathe. And it's talking about being sacred and then talking about being sacrilegious. You were cursing in a church. I'm looking for lightning to come down and strike us all. But again, I didn't know what I didn't know. And through these rooms, because he told me to stay in my seat, I began to understand love and tolerance as I kept coming around here, right? We say if you have if we have what you want and you're willing to go to any length. I told you about the things those guys had, and I wanted that. They gave me a plastic bag, and in that plastic bag was this big blue book, a meeting guide. Y'all remember those meeting guides? Physical meeting guide that you could mark up. They said always know where your next meeting is going to be. And to this day, I still know where my next meeting is. And to my wife's chagrin, I know well too many meetings that's in my rotation, especially with the Zoom platform that we get an opportunity to stay on. Right. So they told me to get a pad, a pen, a highlighter, and a dictionary. And they told me to show up at 7 a.m. before the 8 a.m. meeting next week. And I was like, whoa. I've got 2 degrees hanging on the wall. My educational pursuits are over. They said, if you want what we have, do what we did. And guess what I did? I started showing up. And we started going through that thing called the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And they began to take me through it in a structured program that was in place. And they had me define words and they had me do homework. Homework. I wanted what those guys had. So I did some homework. And where it said write, I wrote. Where it said prayed, I prayed. Where it said thought, where it said thought, I did some thinking. My second meeting was in a clubhouse. And this was not a fancy, swank clubhouse. This was a clubhouse that had stairs. And if you stepped the wrong way, you might fall into the basement. None of the chairs matched in that place. And it was like, I'm like, where am I going? And it was this guy that talked out of the side of his mouth. And what I heard him say, I don't know if these were his words, but what I heard him say, sit down, shut the F up, and we'll teach you how to live. And I'm like, what in the heavens have I walked into? But he was right. Learn how to live. Because listen, what I've learned in my time here, once I put the plug in the jug and throw the jug away, guess what I got to do? I got to live. Because life shows up. And let me tell you how life showed up this morning. I'm here in Albany. It's the capital. And so all the state legislators and things here, and there's an advocacy day for recovery, right? And I was looking to do some volunteer work there, do some registration at the table for all the people that were coming in and so on and so forth. I paid my money to park. I'm getting out of the car and I get a call from my son, a FaceTime call. Dad, the car's on fire. What? And he shows me a picture. The car's on fire. So he dropped his 3-year-old son off and came back out, and there was some smoke. And before you know it, his car was in flames. 7:30 this morning, that's how my day started, right? Life shows up. Life shows up. So I get a clear picture of what gratitude's about. Seconds and inches, second and inches, right? Lives can change. Lives can change, right? Same thing happened when my dad passed away a little over 2 years ago, right? I talked to him after a surgical procedure. I talked to him while I was in recovery. I get a call from the doctor, and the doctor says, hey, listen, your dad's heart stopped. We've been trying to get it going for 10 minutes. While I'm on the phone, they get a heartbeat. Hang the phone up. No harm, no foul. I get another call back from the doctor. Hey, his heart stopped again. We can't get it going. While I'm on the phone, guess what happens? They get a heartbeat. Now I'm looking around. I think I'm getting pumped. I'm like, what is going on? Right? Get another call back. Um, Heart stopped again. That time they couldn't get it back. And I said, hey, listen, let God's will be done. It wasn't me who said that, but it was the beauty of this program. Life shows up. Life shows up. And understanding how to live life is really what this program is about for me, right? And that's what I want to spend the rest of this time talking about, right? After I do the steps, right? After I have a spiritual experience, after I do some service and I become Mr. AA, now what? Right? Now what? How do I live life? And that's really what this thing is all about, right? We I've gotten an opportunity to understand who I am, right? And as the big book says, what I am to be, who God would want me to be. So I've got to develop this relationship with God. And I'm using that God word just because it's efficient, right? I did not understand why you guys were saying higher power when I got here, right? Not only because of where I came from in a religious aspect, because God's a short to a word. It's only 3 letters. Higher power is 2 words. I mean, come on, people. But I didn't know what I didn't know. And that's where that love and tolerance comes in, right? I thought I knew God before I came here. And one of the reasons why I am still here and one of the biggest attractions to this program is the spiritual component of this program. Everything that I learned spiritually, religiously, growing up is all that we do here. It's just presented in a different format and it's lived in a different way. And here's a linchpin for me. Because see, I had access to this God, to this higher power before I met you guys. And let me say this. If you're struggling with God, higher power, creator, universe, if you're struggling with it, don't trip. Stay. Listen. Keep coming back. Things will happen. If you take care of the little things, the big things will take care of themselves. And I didn't make that up. I got that from one of my football coaches, right? Take care of the little things, the big things will take care of themselves. So I had an attraction to this because it spoke my language. And here's what I found out by doing a fourth step. The reason why I could not access that power was because I was in the way. I was blocked. Too much selfishness, too much self-centeredness, too much ego, too much sarcasm. I suffered from abandonment. I'm passive aggressive. I got too many old ideas. And what this program has helped me do is clear the channel. The St. Francis prayer, 11-step prayer talks about clearing a channel. It talks about making me a channel. Make me a channel with peace, right? Make me a channel with peace. I've got to clear that channel. I had no peace because see, I didn't want to be around y'all. I wanted to be on an island by myself. And I kept you at arm's length. Can't do that in this program. We, it's a we program. We do this thing together, right? There's something that happens when one alcoholic gets with another alcoholic and we start to do this work. Something happens, right? I don't know about you, but I tried to read this here big book all by myself and tried to make sense of it so I could make it fancy and make it pretty. Did not work. 3 times. It was ready to be thrown out the window until I started doing some step work. And those guys sat me down and they had to force feed me some stuff, right? I don't know about you, but I'm not the guy that takes suggestions. You give me a suggestion, I'm going to find my way around it. Ask my wife, she will tell you. I can find the gray area in anything that happens. Those guys were just that tough with me, and that's what I needed. That's what I needed, and it worked. And I began to do this work, and I got to see how I separated myself from this power. In the last 15 minutes or so, I'm going to kind of do a quick walk through my experience with the steps. And I can tell you, steps 1, 2, and 3, I didn't do much as far as working them. For me, they were a summation of what happens in this program, right? That first step, powerlessness. There's no way you can tell me, being a football player from the inner city of Baltimore, and tell me I didn't have any power from what I could do as far as lifting weights and be successful on the football field and make it out of where I came from in Baltimore. I fought that powerlessness when I came in here. Unmanageable. My bills were paid. I've got 2 cars. My family's still around me. Unmanageability has nothing to do with that. It has to do with what's going on inside of my head and what's going on in my heart. Unmanageability has to do with what's going on with me when I lay my head down at night and when I look at myself in the mirror. That's where that unmanageability comes from. Knowing that if I go out and hang with somebody I shouldn't have been hanging with, doing some things I shouldn't have been doing, drinking and driving, what the consequences would be. And I do it anyway. Unmanageability, right? Second step, the third step had God in it. I told you I'm Pentecostal. What you gonna tell me about God? What you gonna tell me about God? I already know about God. I done read the Bible. I done spoke in tongues. I done danced around the church. What you gonna tell me about God? I bypassed those 2 steps. And as I talked about, if you got a problem with God, focus on the first word in the second step. It said Cain. It says Cain. Process. This is a whole process. This thing doesn't happen just by reading a step. It doesn't happen just by reading what's in the book. It's application. It's being willing, and that willingness brings some humbleness, and we get open and we let this thing happen to us. But we've got to bring ourselves to the table. Got to bring ourselves to the table. Came to believe that. I don't have to believe in anything. I got to believe that power, and that power could be anything, right? I cannot tell you who my higher power is, what my higher power is. My higher power is like the wind, right? I can't describe the wind. I can't see the wind, but when the wind blows, I can feel the effects and I can see the effects of that higher power. And when I sit my behind still because I've done the work, so I've cleared the channel, guess what? I get to feel that wind. I get to feel that higher power, right? The big book says, be still and know that I am God. right? It's in the stillness. And we talk about in the 11th step that prayer and meditation, it's about stillness. And if I haven't cleared the channel, if I still have all that noise, if I've got that anxiety because I'm concerned about all those things that I can't control in the future, and I'm beating myself up about the past, guess what? I can't sit still. I'm not open to have my higher power come and commune with me, right? So that's why it's valuable to do this work, to clear the channel. And guess what? The sunlight of the spirit begins to shine in and shines through. And that's what happened to me. Now, you guys in the fourth step said write. And where I come from, they say if you write things down, it's going to become evident. Don't write it down. And then you double down and you say, go tell on yourself, go snitch on yourself. Admit it to God, myself, and another individual. The nature, not every single thing, but just the nature. And that's where the sponsor comes in. We don't do this thing by ourselves. And Uncle Ralph says a student can't grade his own paper, right? I can't see the label if I'm inside the jar. I got to get outside the jar and I got to be able to read the label, right? I got to be able to do that inventory. And remember what the 10th step says, continue to take inventory. If I never start, if I've never done it, how am I going to continue? It's amazing how this stuff just begins to wrap itself around and we move through it. And I sit down with an individual that didn't look like me, didn't come from where I came from, and I begin to talk about these things that we work through in the fourth step. And because I did that, the sixth step says we're now ready. If I don't do 4 and 5, discuss these things with a sponsor, understand the nature of my wrongs, what am I ready for? What am I ready for? And then I get to 7 and I'm going to ask God. Again, if I identify these things and understand my nature and understand my character defects, what I'm going to ask God to take over. And then I go to 8, right? Then I go to 8. A lot of what I've learned in this program is all about willingness. 8 just tells me to make a list. Am I willing to make a list? Am I willing to do the inventories in 4 and let God do the rest? I just got to take the action and something happens. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. Make the list and something happens just by me making the list and sharing it with a sponsor or a trusted individual and getting some wisdom as to what I need to do after I make the list. If I'm making a list, if I'm on step 8, stay in step 8. If I'm on step 4, don't worry about who I'm going to tell my 5 to. Just make the freaking inventory list in 4. They told me, look at your feet. Look at your feet. That's where you are. Keep your head where your feet are, right? All these little sayings that we have here, right? All these slogans. I use those slogans a lot, as you've heard me speak, right? You heard me speak. God prevents the opportunities to do the amends. But if I don't understand what I'm doing the amend for, again, back to 4 and 5, and then doing that work with God, right? And I guess while I'm on, let me talk about sponsorship. Please get a sponsor. To have someone to talk to have someone to run this stuff by, especially when you get to 9th step. You know, we come in here day 1 and all of a sudden we done seen the light. I'm not drinking for 12 hours. And guess what? I got all these apologies to make. Steps don't talk about making no apology. It says making amends. Fixing what was right. Fixing what was right. I've talked about 10 and doing that inventory. If I don't do a 4, I can't do a 5. 4 broke me down so that when I'm wrong, as it says when I'm wrong in 10, I do the work. I do the work, and I'm not just saying I'm sorry. And step 11 is just learning how to sit still, learning how and having a conversation with your higher power, right? If I'm having a conversation with you, I'm not repeating your name every 5 words. Have a conversation with your higher power, just like you and I are having a conversation right now. Walk and talk with your higher power, not just praying as you're driving during the day, as your son calls you up and says the car's on fire. Have it prepared. Have it prepared. And good old 12 step, right? Having a spiritual experience as a result of these steps. I believe in the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. There's many ways to do the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Just do them. God shows up. God will do what God does, right? There's many formats in doing the 12 steps. Do the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Insanity, being in the 12-step program and not doing the 12 steps. Insane. And even in more insanity, expecting the promises that are in all our steps and throughout our big book and not doing the 12 steps. Going to a meeting does not get us to experience those promises. It opens the door. It opens the door. And that's one of the reasons why I continue to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. Because see, when this knucklehead came to his first meeting, somebody was there. And as Dr. Bob said, I owe it to Alcoholics Anonymous because I didn't know I needed you guys. I had no clue. I had absolutely no clue. I was not asking God to take alcohol away from me. I was asking for more. Give me more. I've been given a gift. Through what you all have been able to do, you've been able to take me by one hand and put the other hand in the hand of a loving God. And I have a responsibility to help others to do the same thing. And that's what I've been able to do. I had a number of pages I was going to read through the big book, and I was going to talk about something from the fifth step in the 12 and 12, where it talked about forgiveness and it talked about isolation and how the fifth step begins to remove us out of that isolation because we sit with another person and we reveal ourselves as that person also revealed themselves and get to understand forgiveness because I forgive myself. That's where forgiveness starts. I have to forgive myself. And the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous allows that. So I'm going to land. I am going to land the plane right there, right? And as I said, I'm a very grateful alcoholic. I'm thankful for Alcoholics Anonymous and what they have given me. I want to thank Dave again for finally being patient and getting me here. My name is Rodney. I'm a grateful arrested alcoholic, and I will stay.